Da-da. Da-da. Okay, that's all I got. Welcome to the Godzilla podcast,
where we try to differentiate this podcast from our previous podcast with a whole new theme.
Yeah, just taking another movie's theme and putting it right in our podcast. What do you say?
I think this would be a great idea. It would attract audiences, and it wouldn't confuse them at all.
Yeah. And how about instead of calling our podcast the Godzilla podcast, we call it the Gigantis podcast?
But just for one episode.
Just for one episode, yeah. and then it's Godzilla later on. You know, Toho might call us up, ask us to change the episode title, you know.
For years, it won't be counted as a sequel, even because
it won't be an episode of this podcast, but yet it's still in the feed. I don't know how it got there.
Gigantis. This is a really weird American take on what was just a normal sequel, and we're gonna get into that.
We are gonna get into that, but first, we gotta do plugs. Go to the GodzillaPodcast.com. Not the Godzilla, it's just GodzillaPodcast.com. Take the out of it.
www.GodzillaPodcast.com.
There is a contact form there if you want to contact us, or you can join our very empty forum. It's, we're not expecting it to be full right now, but someday, come say hello to us. We will definitely respond.
Yeah, we're just starting this out.
So we're excited to talk to you guys. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at Joseph DeGolyer, DEGOLYER, Andrew.
You can follow me at Gojira Jaeger, JAEGER, or as Joe pointed out, at Drew Daybell. Daybell.
You should be able to find it.
Yep.
Are you ready to start Gigantis the Fire Monster?
To be honest, no. I'm glad we don't have the sound on.
I understand.
So if you could narrate your own life, Joe, here, let's let you push this button and we'll go into this.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to start the movie. This is the same version we had before. It's like the Sony Classics or something like that.
It's not Criterion.
It's not Criterion. It's definitely not Criterion.
Okay. Sorry.
What the heck? Okay. It's the only DVD version of Godzilla Raids Again. The English dub version, which was originally titled Gigantis.
The Fire Monster?
The Fire Monster. And because Toho wanted them to, they do have a new title screen for the movie. So I'm going to press the play movie button in 3, 2, 1, go.
So,
are you excited, Drew?
Yeah, I'm excited to.
Isn't this the best Godzilla movie ever? First off, starting with an atomic bomb that does not take place in the original movie.
No, they add stock footage, and it's really just. I mean, there's stock footage to add to something to enhance your movie, and then there's adding really random stock footage to appeal to your audience, and it goes a little too far.
We have no idea what movies these were taken out of either.
Yeah,
some of these are from other monster movies from the U.S., and we have no idea where they came from.
When you really want a movie to be popular, I guess you'd analyze at the time what people are enjoying, what people are going and seeing at the cinema, but to just cut a movie, add so much to pander to what's popular at the time, that's what you get in Godzilla Raids Again.
Can you believe that this is the only version we had up until 2006?
So we didn't have the original?
We didn't have the original version until the DVD came out.
I'm stunned and in silence because
this was generally seen, I guess, by fans. I didn't really know about this movie until later. This was generally seen as the absolute worst Godzilla movie. Now, I disagree. I do believe there are worse movies, even worse than this English dub. It's called Son of Godzilla. I do believe there are worse movies than this one. However, this one is pretty terrible. And we forgot to do our rankings last time, by the way.
Yeah. Well, we
Out
were
of the
so
three Godzilla
underwhelmed.
movies we've seen, how would you rank them?
Still Gojira, the original. I believe it's 1954, isn't it? So that one number one. Because Raymond Burr pulled it off really well. Godzilla, King of Monsters, number two, and then Godzilla Raids Again 3. For lack of a, it doesn't have a great storyline. It doesn't.
No. Yeah, I would agree with you. I would go one by one. Agree with you. I think that the Americanized version of Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is much better than the original version of Godzilla Raids Again. And I would say that Gigantis the Fire Monster, now I'm not going to spoil where I'm going to rank it, but it's pretty low. It's pretty low.
Just the fact that we went into this really not, I personally, I don't want to see it again.
Yeah, I don't. I'm looking at this. I'm like, Jesus, please.
No, yeah. Okay, what we just witnessed amongst the stock footage at the beginning is it's how Hollywood and the movie producers that cut this together, it's how people in America thought of Japan, I guess, at the time. A little racist.
Were they really thinking of them that way?
Well,
they bombed Pearl Harbor and...
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even thought of that. What doesn't make sense to me is that they try to convince you at the beginning, through the narration and the stock footage you're shown, the Japanese are these farmers.
Yeah, the primitive way of life with the Japanese. Yeah, but the rest of the movie... They're in a city.
Exactly.
The dude spots fish. They're not just fishing off of a little boat with they're
using planes and radio communication.
Yeah, exactly. What?
So it does everything to tell you Japan is in this feudalistic farming lifestyle.
This primitive, wonderful, naturey life. Down to earth.
It's more wholesome than what we have with our technology. The rest of the movie goes to prove you wrong.
Look at that big ship.
It just blows that out of the water at the beginning. And you know what? You say, look at that big ship. I bet you that's what the narrator just said. I don't think we've mentioned who the narrator is yet.
George Takei. Yep. In a very stereotypical Japanese accent.
Yeah, I had to ask you when we were watching this.
Which is not how George Takei speaks.
No.
But is how he plays this character.
Yeah, it's
And it's kind of a mix throughout the movie, whether or not they're speaking in like a regular American accent. Or if they're speaking in some sort of Japanese accent for the because we can't tell by looking at them that they're Japanese.
Yeah.
That's always bugged me about these subtitles of some of these older films. Or not subtitles, but dubbing of some of the older films.
Yeah.
Is that if there's someone of a certain ethnicity, they must, in order for us not to be weirded out, I guess, they must have some sort of very thick accent.
Yeah, even if they're speaking English.
All the characters are Japanese... And then we're like, we put on we go in for the close up in Red October, and then we pull out right. There shouldn't be all speaking with a Japanese accent, or like some of them speaking with the Japanese accent.
It's not necessary.
It should be normal to them, and thus it should be normal to the audience. So they should be with an American accent. Yep. Something which, by the way, I think the guy who, now he gets a lot of flack for this, and I can't remember his name right now, and we'll get to this movie eventually. The guy who did the dubbing for Godzilla 2000 and re-edited the film, they all have American accents.
Yeah.
So first of all, big thumbs up. However, he did decide to keep there is an Asian, I guess, timbre.
Yeah.
You know, in someone's voice, you can tell that they're Asian. Just there's sort of a tone in there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how to describe it, but the guy said, it was a subtle thing, and he sensed it, so he cast actors of Asian descent, East Asian descent, in order to play the roles in Godzilla 2000. But he didn't have them put on a stupid accent.
Yeah, I think the way he did that, the way you're describing it, sounds totally appropriate. Sounds normal to be listening to it. The accent that you hear from George Takei in this, Whew, it sounded forced, and that's why I had to ask you. I'm like, he doesn't actually speak like
he doesn't.
that. Oh,
he speaks very. He's a radio guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a nice voice.
Oh my.
And, oh my.
Yeah.
Exactly. If any of our audience don't know who George Takei is, I would be so surprised. But it's Sulu.
Yeah, he's
from original Star Trek.
Oh, is that what he's famous for?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're joking. Right?
I am joking.
Okay.
Now, I never watched Star Trek. I will admit, I have watched one episode of Star Trek, and it was the pilot. Because I was like, maybe I should try Star Trek. And then I watched the pilot. I'm like, maybe not today.
Well, if you've ever tried TV shows, the pilots aren't always... They could be totally different.
And I know it's not where the series started off. It was when they brought Captain Kirk in. But
I don't remember. Kirk wasn't in the pilot?
Well, the pilot never aired. They brought the pilot later, and then they treated the pilot like a prologue, I guess. If you know more, please tell us.
No, all I would say...
I honestly don't know that much about the Star Trek stuff. I have seen the new movies.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I mostly know George Takei from his activism and stuff like that.
He is...
Myself, that's where I know him from.
Just quickly, I have watched a lot of the original Star Trek, not all of it, and I'm by no means a Trekkie just because extent of knowledge is very limited. I enjoyed them because I loved the Twilight Zone, like the original black and white Twilight Zone. Yeah. What Star Trek felt like to me, and I realized it a few episodes in, it's the Twilight Zone with a recurring cast. They go, sometimes when they land on a planet, you see... It's weird. Like they'll be in modern day, like a Western, and it's weird. And then sometimes they'll be way into the future, like they are in Star Trek. And so, yeah, it was just really random adventures they'd get in that were Twilight Zone-y with like a monster, a twist and everything. And yet you got a recurring cast, unlike the Twilight Zone. So I felt that was really well done. That's how I felt about it.
Maybe I'll give them a try.
You have to be in the mood. It's very old. One of the monsters.
I got a list of TV shows that I want to watch in the future, and it's a short list. So it could very well easily make it on my
I would love to
list
be there
of
to watch
TV shows to watch. But
as much as we're avoiding
the narration of George Takei, constant.
It never stops.
It stops 2/3 of the way through the movie for a little bit. Yeah, that's honestly where
for a small section, and then I think it picks up again. And what I didn't discuss this with you at all upon our first viewing. So at the beginning, when he starts narrating, it's almost like a journal entry, like he's narrating it because he witnessed everything. So he's just telling you in extremely great detail about everything that's going on that you're seeing. Then it shifts later to him just talking. It's definitely not a journal entry anymore, is what it kind of feels like at the beginning. I can't remember what the change is, but you can tell it can't be a journal entry because his character that he voices in this as well isn't present at all, and yet he's just talking about everything that's happening. Mm-hmm. It makes you want to just say, single thing. Shut up. Oh, it's hard.
And I put my left foot forward and then followed that by my right foot, and then once again by my left foot, before taking my hand to the door handle and then opening the door, in which I would slide. He doesn't stop. There's like, it's like a giant run-on sentence for half the movie where he's just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and no periods, no new paragraphs, just commas, just
exactly. And so literal, as you just said. You made the joke, and it made me cringe and not want to watch this American version when we were watching the Japanese version. Because you were just saying how atrocious this narration is. Godzilla and Anguirus at the beginning.
The first time I watched this movie. That's why.
Well, Godzilla and Anguirus fall into the ocean, and I'm like, does he say like literally out loud that they fell into the ocean? He's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. And he does. Oh no.
It's horrible. It is horrible. I would suggest to anyone at home who has decided to listen to this as a podcast and not as a commentary to never watch this movie. And if you are going to watch it, please watch it with commentary. That's it. Like, just turn the sound off. You're saving yourself the pain of this film.
There's no need to watch it. If you watch Godzilla Raids again, it's enough. And also, it just takes what was, it was a movie. The storyline's a little, it's hard to describe why it's weird, but it just is weird. It felt weird and short. And as you pointed out, the ending isn't really an ending because Godzilla's definitely going to come back. Mm-hmm. He's just stuck in ice. He did come back. He came back for Godzilla versus King Kong. That'll be our next one. But they took... Oh, this movie. There's so much, and we'll get to it.
Godzilla versus Mothra is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And Godzilla versus King Kong, I haven't seen it since I was a child, but I remember loving it. How can this be the sequel to this movie? And it's almost good that they didn't put Godzilla on the title of this movie. Because for American audiences who, I'm not going to say that they waited, like that they were like shaken, like, yes, the next Godzilla movie, because that probably wasn't the case. But just having something come in theaters called Gigantis, and then just kind of like, I know it was successful when it came out, just kind of like having that die, it almost like saves Godzilla from it, so that we can then watch the great Godzilla versus King Kong and Godzilla versus Mothra and Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, the movies that are coming next. Like,
yeah, the ones that we love and rewatch.
Uh-huh.
So much the opposite to us telling you, do not watch this. The other ones we've gladly watched over and over and over. Okay.
Okay. Some of the weird stock footage here. My favorite is the frog. Although the little head coming out of the little, I don't know, Diplodocus head coming out of the steam, which I don't think dinosaurs ever like stood in the steam.
I know this is the 50s or the 60s, but this is stretching. So there's a science fiction that's like totally absurd, not in any way plausible. And then there's science fiction where it's plausible, but it's just a little bit of a stretch. I feel like they're trying to combine them in a weird way here because they're talking about dinosaurs, which actually existed, but these certain types of dinosaurs, I can't remember if they're telling us that all dinosaurs came from fire. They were literally born from the center of the earth and came out. It's like, what?
This is a very strange montage because he's not only just explaining Godzilla, he's also explaining like the history of the earth before going into, oh yeah, and he attacked just a couple years ago. Like, this is unnecessary exposition, even for the American audience, I'd say. If he just went, hey, look at these highlights from another movie called Godzilla, but yet it's the same monster as this Gigantis thing, and look at what he did. Now he's coming back. Like, that's fine. You don't need to explain that there was once, God created the heavens and the earth and separated the light from the darkness, and
you quote Genesis before you preface a Godzilla attack.
Yeah, whatever. Like whatever the hell he says in this scene, I don't remember.
They all came out of fire.
Yeah. It is like, it's still kind of a bad scene in the original just because he's like, hey, look how good this movie was. Like,
yeah, and they show you, his fight.
It's almost like a Spider-Man 3-esque sort of like a flashback with the uncle or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you remember that first movie that was really good? Now we're going to tell you about the Sandman. Like, that's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that is now a rule. Like, if anybody's listening out there who's interested in screenwriting or something like that, don't put scenes from another movie that you're making a sequel to. I think it almost makes us, especially if it's not going well, like if the movie's not going well, I think we should definitely like not be reminded of how good the first one was.
Exactly. Separate it, make it its own thing. If it's a sequel,
oh yeah. One of the reaction shots in this room is just a still frame of a guy while the voiceover has time to catch up.
Yeah, and it lingers on him for long enough to make you realize that's just a still frame of a man's face.
Yep. If you think that this is a bastardization, though, like, I'll be honest, this is the worst Godzilla movie second worst Godzilla movie I've ever seen. So far.
Yeah.
So far. Now, we will get into the doldrums of the 70s at some point, but it is not now. And I am not excited for those few films right there.
Yeah.
However, this is nothing in comparison to a Bruce Lee movie, which I believe is called Game of Death.
Okay.
Bruce Lee died. Okay, if I got the title of the movie wrong, I'm sorry for Bruce Lee fans out there. We all know what movie I'm talking about.
Okay.
Bruce Lee died in the middle of filming this movie.
Oh.
And they had to, in order to release a movie, they had to like take the footage that they had and then, like add new footage with other actors, and then sometimes they'd like stick still frames in just as reaction shots, kind of like we saw right there. It's all over the place and it's just atrocious. Now it's sad because it could have been a great kung fu movie, who knows. But that is a bad like American re-edit. Not that I guess it's not really an American re-edit, but it's just
how they finished the film.
Yeah, just how they finished it was bad.
Well, I mean, so he died a lot earlier than his son, but in The Crow.
Did he? I thought they were both in their 30s, weren't they?
Well, what I'm saying is earlier, like as in time.
Oh, in The Crow, yeah, Brandon Lee, I think they were almost done with the movie, so it was less of a stitch up. Which is sad. Hey, did you know, and I'm not sure if this is the case with Brandon Lee in The Crow, but I guess that whenever they have a stunt actor who dies during doing a stunt, like it's just tradition, or it's like honorable to always put that version or that take of their stunt, the one that they died on, in the movie. I heard that like a few months ago. I'm like, that's very interesting. Now I'm wondering how many people I've seen die while watching action movies.
Well, I believe we already mentioned in this podcast the Twilight Zone, the movie.
Yeah, Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that one.
I don't
look
know
it up.
I don't think I don't know.
Oh, they didn't survive.
No, they definitely didn't survive. I don't think we should bring that up again.
No.
Yeah.
Or your toy Godzilla. So
this version was less re-edited than what they were originally planning on, by the way. And I say they because it was a different company. Company called, what the heck was it called? ABPT Productions. They wanted to basically make an Americanized version, sort of like they had with Godzilla King of the Monsters, only more so.
Yeah, and what you will explain here to me how they wanted to do it. It sounds to me like how Power Rangers is made, to be honest. You take a new cast, a new everything, and what you keep is, well, in this case, what they would have kept were the actual like fight scenes, between the monsters, or just the scenes of Godzilla.
They were going to keep what they wanted, but for the most part, they were going to make it a completely different movie.
Yeah.
And the Toho had even shipped the suits over, the Anguirus and the Godzilla suits. They shipped them over, and who knows where the suits went, because the production company that was going to do it closed its doors before they started production on the Volcano Monsters, is what it was going to be called.
That, and through one commentary on all this or another that we watched, I believe in one of them they were talking about how that suit was actually found, but it was much later. They found it in a box.
Rumor of a suit.
And how it was just burned through. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's at the end of this film where you do see Godzilla actually the suit actor being hit with the firecrackers that are so often, shot at him, and they're always missing. because this suit is much less durable and thick than the original.
Yeah, but we talked about that. It was like it was for fighting, so you gotta take some. You
take some artistic liberties. You get a slimmer monster.
Do get a slimmer monster. I don't think that this Godzilla looks nearly as good as the original Godzilla looked.
They lengthened his neck out a little too much, yeah.
But what can he do?
You can skip this movie.
You can skip this movie.
It's enough to know George Takei narrates it. There is a ton of stock footage added. They actually changed the storyline. So they changed the storyline in ways of, I don't know, like now we're watching the stock footage and he's narrating that...
There's already a dancing scene. Why did they need to...
Oh, they added like shots of...
geishas just playing
8 or 9 different clubs. Yeah, they just keep showing all these different clubs, and they're like, everybody was partying before the inevitable attack, and it's like, all right, everybody's getting prepared for their deaths, I guess. It's so weird.
I hate it. We haven't talked about this yet. Godzilla's roar.
And it's not his, though.
It's in this version of the film, and I say the word film accidentally.
I was gonna, very accidentally.
In this version of this video.
Video.
Yeah, video.
So ranking those words, film is at the very top.
Yeah,
this is prestigious word.
Film is film. Yeah.
And then there's a movie.
Yeah, it's
and
a
then
movie,
there's a video.
Yeah, what a video.
This is definitely a video. I will also attempt to refer to this as a video throughout the rest of the movie. Sorry,
in this
Joe.
video, this horrible piece of shit video that we're watching here, they have taken, I guess, because the editor thought that the roar was cooler, they have taken Anguirus's roar and put it on top of Godzilla's roar.
Well, it was said...
And it's not even like a bunch of different versions of Anguirus's roar. It's the same, for the most part, as far as I can remember. It's the same roar over and over again.
Yeah, watching it, I think I counted 1 or 2 instances where you hear Godzilla's roar.
Yeah,
and
it's sometimes.
It's just, but like once or twice, maybe twice. And I think that, we missed that one. But,
whoops.
Oh, that slipped through the cracks like this whole movie did. But yeah, they tried to differentiate it so much from the original Godzilla that, this is the cry of a new monster. And yet when Anguirus and Godzilla are fighting, which isn't even really the climax of the movie. I don't know. It's a part of the movie. They're both doing that, and so you're like, wait a second,
that ain't no Godzilla roar.
Yeah, well, and even if you had went into the theater never having seen the original Godzilla back at the time, you're why not differentiate your monsters? Oh, yeah. Because he does it the whole time as he's walking into Tokyo Bay or wherever he's walking into. And then Anguirus shows up and then you hear more of it, even more of it because there's 2 of them.
Mm-hmm. So let me just say that there are 2 improvements to this film.
So there are. There are improvements.
2. I would be surprised if you find a third one on this. First off, the weird shot that we were talking about in Godzilla Raids Again, in which there's just like there's like 3 or 4 flakes of snow as a plane is taken off. They added more snow, and it looks less like someone's just like sprinkling like fake snow in front of the camera lens on top of this effect shot. It looks a lot better. That's one.
One shot.
That's one. Number 2 is the musical score that we complained about last time has been replaced by serviceable stock score from other movies.
Yes, actual music, and everywhere on all the articles
I do read about say this, that is an improvement.
They say that there was a score to the original. I know it was scored, but there was nothing through the whole film.
Look, I have a drum set right there. We can play the entire score for you. Yes. If it wouldn't,
two
if
parts
it
of the
wasn't,
film.
11 o'clock and my neighbors who would be not pissed at me, then I would actually play the cymbal for you guys. I would just,
and that's it. So yes, that made the movie listenable. Well,
is there another improvement, Drew?
I thought you would mention it, and there is. It's that. So they add. Let me think about it, because it's something between our two lead actors. How they. Okay. This is what it was. It just came to me. So they gave our main male protagonist a something to do at the end, basically something to achieve. It's that when he's on the rooftop scene with his beloved, it's just awkward, the dialogue or the thought of how they motivate him. Mm-hmm. She calls him brave, and he's like, "Oh, I don't think I'm very brave, you think I'm brave?" It's like, this is a grown man admitting that, "Oh, I don't think I'm so brave." And it's like, she's like, "Yeah, I think you are." At the end, when he's, after his companion, his friend dies, sacrifices himself, and they realize through his sacrifice, we could cause an avalanche, it makes it more of a now I'm, have my opportunity to show
motivation a little bit.
Well, not even character motivation, some development period, because otherwise they're in the original. He
minuscule.
Has
I'd still say
nothing.
minuscule.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that well.
Oh no. Like I said, it's a grown man going, "Am I brave? Do you think I'm brave?" She's like, "Yes, honey. I think you're brave." No grown man's going to admit that. It just feels weird. But they gave him some character development. No, it's not good character development, but it's
2.5 improvements.
Okay, I would definitely count it as
2.5 improvements. This film, of course, has the very famous line "banana oil," which we missed, by the way, because we're not playing this with the sound on because we have to do a commentary.
We're missing a lot of things.
Banana oil. It's basically, another way of saying bullshit. Only, I guess, George Takei said that it was a weird phrase at the time. It was already
way outdated.
It was already outdated in the 50s. That was an old way of saying, bullshit or baloney or whatever you want to say.
It was a phrase back when men had actual duels with pistols in the street. And, banana oil.
Yeah, and apparently George Takei talked about it on Late Night with Conan O'Brien, but I couldn't find the clip, which made me sad.
Completely honest, if I was George Takei, I would never want to talk about my involvement with this.
This was pre-Star Trek. He was an actor looking for a job.
And that's okay,
and he found one.
He found one, and he just went with what they told him to do, because you don't want to be, if you're an unknown, you don't want to be vehement against your the people who are giving you a job and say, do you really want me to do this? This seems a little bit over the top. Mm-hmm. I'm talking a lot here. Oh, just keep reading. Just keep reading it. I know it seems like a lot, but you're going to help.
And then I looked to my left, but there was nothing there. So I looked to my right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then somebody appeared.
Oh, look, a monster. It's so bad. It is so bad. Another change. Sorry to cut you off.
A good one or a bad one?
A bad one.
Okay. They just keep coming, these bad changes.
One. Kobayashi. Mr. Chubby Man.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Chubs. He's basically a Flintstone.
Yeah, he went from having a normal human voice to he literally speaks.
I would like to see the old Jewish guys that produced this American edit of the movie. I'd like to see. He looks kind of dumb and fat. Let's give him a dumb and fat voice.
Let's make him sound like a cartoon character.
Yeah, boys. And then they got their not boys. That's the Rock impersonation. Yeah, boys. And then they get their cigars out and then they light them up. And that's what I imagine.
There was definitely an elite group of people that went through and made this, and nobody said anything against it. They just did it. sometimes you're a lackey and you just do what people tell you to do. That is definitely how this got made. Because if anybody had any say against it, it's just terrible.
Apparently, we can blame Writer Sound Services in New York. That's where the film was dubbed. Among the voice actor cast, we also have Kai Luke, Paul Frees, Marvin Miller, and James Yagi, who would later appear as Yotaka Umaru in the U.S. version of King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Which
so
will
a
be
new dub. There's apparently a repeat dubbist voice actor.
I hope that he's one with the good voice, because I don't remember there being too many from this.
I don't remember the English dub of King Kong vs. Godzilla.
George Takei has such a good voice. He kind of squanders it in this.
He could have given us his nice, sultry, kind of slow, very exact voice for this whole movie, and instead he gave us... Not that it's his fault. I doubt it was his fault.
No.
Instead, he gave us, Mr. Stereotypical Japanese man.
Speaking English, yeah. He was either given the direction to, told to speak as he does, or he probably just, because like you said, he was an unknown looking for work, did it, and they're like, yeah, this was pretty good. Just do it.
Sorry, I called this version the Sony Classics version earlier. It's Classic Media. I apologize.
Yes, that's the logo that comes on before these. And they do a good job. I like how they...
I love how they package their DVDs.
Oh, yeah. They're very
unfortunately,
nice.
I think another company kind of got a hold of the Godzilla, the rights to the U.S. distribution of the old Godzilla movies. So they had their line in 2006, which was like, half a dozen films or whatever. All of them have commentaries. All of them have this beautiful like packaging and artwork, and then it was just taken over.
Yeah, because then beyond that, what looks like a very slapped on, it's not as nice for the physical media collectors that want to see these nice boxes.
Yeah, we were of course talking about your Blu-ray version of Godzilla vs. King Kong.
Yeah, actually, I picked it up originally on DVD at Walmart in a bargain bin, less than $5. Somehow went lost. I never even opened up the packaging, but then I bought it on Blu-ray, and yeah. Is it all... We'll have to look this up. Is it all one company, do you think, that owns the distribution rights to these? Because what it seems like is they're just littered so here and there. This Godzilla movie kind of looks like this in its packaging. This one kind of looks like that. I know that it's obviously like stylistically a little different with their choices, but they don't even look like they've been distributed by the same company.
No. Classic Media held the Godzilla films for a little while.
Okay.
From what I heard from an interview from a few years ago, so this might be bad information. You're going to have to look it up for yourselves out there, guys.
Yeah, and we'll find out.
What I heard is that the company, I guess they weren't making enough money off of doing these specialized versions of Godzilla, and so they just gave up the rights.
Well, when I found...
And so another company obviously got a hold of it. This is Universal Studios Home Entertainment that gave you the Blu-ray version of King Kong vs. Godzilla, which makes sense for King Kong vs. Godzilla since King Kong is a universal monster.
Okay, yet at the same...
But there's a few others that you're talking about that are obviously distributed by someone else.
So he is a, quote, universal monster, and yet actually they didn't own... I can't remember if it expired, the rights to King Kong or whatever, or they just were never there, kind of like in Night of the Living Dead. It's a public domain film because they never...
public domain?
Well,
they never
added the TM... to it. Like, it says Night of the Living Dead, but there's nowhere on the film is there any rights attached to it to anybody. So because of kind of a oops or a they didn't realize know what they were doing, they distributed it. And
there's still kind of copyright stuff that protects it still.
Well, what I'm talking about is that at least with Night of the Living Dead quickly is that it just is public domain. Just it is. King Kong, the reason I know the original King Kong from Universal isn't like owned by them, or at least wasn't, it might be now, is because they sued Nintendo for Donkey Kong because they were like, that's just King Kong, back when that was just straight in the arcades. They lost and actually ended up, they were trying to sue Nintendo, and the court ruled that they actually needed to pay Nintendo for, damages caused by taking them into court and whatever.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was because they didn't actually own King Kong, something like that.
I think they probably do. Something tells me they still kind of own King Kong.
Well, they're making...
But they might not have had, like, the right to sue Nintendo. I mean, I grant you that. But you know what? I'm not an expert. We look this up before we talk about it. Exactly. King Kong versus Godzilla.
And quickly, just since we're going to go into King Kong versus Godzilla, in case it isn't known by our listening audiences, they do have plans to do another King Kong film, and then also King Kong Return to Skull Island, and then they have in works a King Kong versus Godzilla movie, a new one.
King Kong dies at the end of King Kong in 2004.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. Well, exactly. Think about it. The title "Return to Skull Island," so they go back. Maybe there's another King Kong.
Oh,
just like how when.
It's too bad they couldn't just make a sequel off the Peter Jackson one. I actually think that one's decent.
No, I enjoyed it too. I loved it when I watched it, and then I started reading into.
It's one of those internet hate movies, but I like it a lot.
No, I was surprised at the hate that I heard.
Stop looking at the internet hate, because internet hate is not always right.
It doesn't affect me, but I was just surprised by it. I was like, why? And then they said, Jack Black's a comedic actor. He's not supposed to be serious. And I'm like, so what? He can't do serious roles? I thought he did a good job. He does
serious roles every once in a while.
Exactly, and I thought he did a good job in it.
Yeah, I think he's a good actor too.
Didn't bother me at all.
Didn't bother me.
I didn't notice what people pointed out as being horrible CGI because I thought it looked great when they're running between these dinosaurs that are stampeding away from either King Kong or the T-Rex that he's fighting, and it's all the actors just running and looking around and kind of dodging these dinosaurs. Okay, in viewing it after people complain about it, okay, it looks a little bad. I didn't notice it at all the first time I watched it. I just thought it was good.
See, people complain about seeing special effects now. It's you could tell for forever when a special effects was being done.
Yeah.
CGI or not. But let me explain something about these scenes that we're seeing here. Now, an article pointed out to me, and I didn't even notice this, that this new director, Oda, I can't remember his first name, as opposed to Ishiro Honda, who directed the original Godzilla movie.
Yes.
I guess for the most part, Oda kind of films Godzilla from wherever.
Yeah.
And often just from the side, just sort of watching the two creatures fight, a lot of close-ups that are head-on and stuff like that. Ishiro Honda, however, to give us scale in the original Godzilla movie, would film mostly from below. So he'd be on the ground and point the camera up so that Godzilla looked like a looming figure, and thus giving us, he looks big. In this movie, he doesn't look so big, and it's that coupled with, of course, the speed, which we talked about last time of the film. It does make him look less impressive in this movie. Okay,
and definitely a director's stylistic choice of how to present Godzilla, very different from our original Godzilla. But there just isn't as much time given in this film as well to show just Godzilla destruction, period. Well, he goes straight into the fighting with Anguirus, pretty much, he hits land, Anguirus shows up, they start fighting, so he has less time to just stomp around. The second time we see Godzilla, there's nothing. He's just on an island with, snow. But also what's not given in this film. So what we know from the original one, they had a suit that was completely unusable. So what they ended up doing is chopping it in half and making it like suspenders and like a Godzilla lower half. So, the shots you're talking about are, yes, looking up to Godzilla for the scale, but also you saw a lot of just Godzilla's feet just crushing things, and those feet look cool. It's because they wanted to make the most use out of the unusable Godzilla suit. And so I really wonder if that was just
out of necessity, or
I really think it was more a stylistic choice, like you said, because that's smart. That is smart directing to think, okay, how can I take someone in a suit on a model set and make it look as make it as convincing as possible that this is a huge thing, and it's so much. This fighting is from a mistake. The underclocking and it being so fast, he moves so much slower, and it's just this menacing destruction, and you get a relish in it. He comes in, he destroys. There's this fight,
and they decided that this was visceral, and this is what they wanted. They wanted to see a wrestling match in dinosaur suits. That's what they wanted to see, I guess.
And it's well done.
It's all right. I'm glad they don't stick with this in the future.
No,
that's for damn sure.
I really think some fighting, it's not sped up like this through the whole thing, but I believe some moves, some shots, just they pull away from it really quick, is sped up, because I can see it being done well. I've mentioned this before in a podcast where like maybe he lifts him or he like throws the other monster and it's like fast, but then you go back to the regular speed or slow. I really think you can kind of find your pacing back and forth, but this is just fast. Yep. And there's a long shot of them wrestling each other, like you said, and they're just so fast.
The prisoners are slightly just more interesting to me than the fast, kind of dorky Godzilla moves. I don't know.
And then they are, because
I do like that he's fighting another monster, though. This is, of course, the first example of this in film history. Two kaijus going against each other.
Yeah, and I think they're two cool ones too. I like Anguirus. I like his design. What they did with Anguirus. He always
gets beat up, though. Like, he's always kind of just like he gets beat up halfway through every movie, and then the real monsters fight. Get out of here, kid.
Exactly. The real monsters, you're right.
Pull apart your jaw real quick. Okay, you're no longer in this movie.
Yeah. Anguirus doesn't have any sort of a special attack. He is just a dinosaur. Also, the creation of Anguirus, he's a... Oh, is it an ankylosaurus?
Ankylosaurus, yeah.
He's an ankylosaurus that has really exaggerated features. Is it Ankylosaurus that at the end of their tail they have like the club, or is it just spiked along the back? So I think it's just spiked along the back.
I think that's Ankylosaurus.
Okay, well, so they
don't. You know what? Last time I named a dinosaur and I was wrong.
All right.
Yeah, in the first episode of this podcast, I think I named a dinosaur and it was very wrong. So I'm avoiding dinosaur names. Once again, if we had a time machine and could like pull my 11-year-old self and like, hey, I'm you in the future, and be like, why did I get so fat? And be like, doesn't matter, come here. And I brought my 11-year-old self in and I was like, hey, me, could you tell us what dinosaur this is based off? He would be 100% accurate. And
then, yeah, he'd be really helpful for our podcast. He could do our research.
He could.
Be like, don't talk in the comment. You can go upstairs, go do whatever you do.
Do some more research. There's not much known about this second movie.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a forgotten one. And of course, the American re-edits, no one ever talks. Like, no one ever says anything.
Yeah, no one wants to say anything about. Oh.
Maybe not. So Osaka Castle, by the way, this is, I believe, the only time that this particular temple is destroyed in the Godzilla movies. I found out it's very old. Let me. My phone is it's in the 1500s. I think it was made.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Godzilla destroying a piece of history.
Yeah, he always does, though. He always does. I feel like I've seen like Hokkaido's big castle get destroyed, and just pretty much every big castle in a big city has been destroyed in these Godzilla movies. But this Osaka Castle, I think it's unique to this movie.
And this is just making me think of, the things you're talking about. I really hope that they can steer clear of like, is it the San Francisco Bay Bridge? The San Francisco, because every major action movie takes place around, even if it's like not actually San Francisco,
1583.
1583
AD. Sorry, Osaka Castle.
Oh,
keep going.
All these like action movies. So I went on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was gone for 2 years, came back, watched like 3 films in succession. I believe it was Avengers, Transformers Age of Ultron, and I can't...
Did you say Transformers?
Sorry, I watched Transformers 3. I did. Woo! That just woo.
I mean, you could be right. I haven't seen Transformers 3. I didn't really like the first movie, so I didn't watch any of the others.
Well, I watched Transformers 3, the first Avengers, and then something else. And in each of those films, the ending is just a massive destruction of New York or just a big major metropolis like city. Mm-hmm. And I just was getting sick of watching that get destroyed. I was like, these are okay films, but wow. I hope that they shy away from, in the next Godzilla, just the San Francisco Bay Bridge.
Is he going to just destroy suburbia somewhere? Like,
well, yeah, it's like go to England. Go to England. Go to somehow Godzilla made his way through the Midwest.
I could be wrong about this, but I think the first dinosaur destruction of a major city was in 1925's The Lost World, which is the dude who did the special effects on that is Willis O'Brien, who also did the special effects later for King Kong.
Okay.
And that was kind of the test movie, I guess.
Lost World.
The Lost World. It's based on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World.
Okay.
It's about these guys who decide there's this crazy scientist who said he was in Brazil in the Amazon rainforest and there's a plateau that has dinosaurs on it. And they're like, oh, really? Oh, let's check it out. And they decide to this guy's crazy, but the people are just following this guy's word that there's a plateau with dinosaurs on it. Turns out there are dinosaurs on it. And I believe, I can't remember in the book whether or not there were cavemen, because I think there might not have been any cavemen.
Okay, in the book there were.
In the book. And in every single adaptation of it, there's cavemen. So I can't remember which is the right thing. I think there's no cavemen, but in the movies there are. Anyway, in the book, he gets a pterodactyl in a cage and then brings it, and then the pterodactyl flies away when he's in London after they brought this proof that there are, in fact, dinosaurs still alive today in the Amazon rainforest. In the movie version, the 1925 adaptation, silent movie, by the way.
Okay, well.
It's free. It's in the public domain. You should be able to find a YouTube version of it also if you're interested in watching really, really primitive special effects, and it's actually amazing what they could do. I still think stop motion to me is just amazing.
Yeah, and the original King Kong looks cool.
They brought a brontosaurus, which I know was not a real dinosaur. They brought a brontosaurus over in a boat and brought it to London, I think. And then the brontosaurus, he just breaks out and he starts tearing down buildings and stuff like that. And then he goes off into the sea or something like that. So this is in a tradition of films spanning, at this point, 25 or so years, quarter of a century, a little longer than that. But this is just buildings getting destroyed by super things, whether or not they be machines, superhumans, or aliens, or monsters. It's an old tradition in movies. And so you're saying London, I'm saying London was destroyed in 1925. It wasn't destroyed, but a few buildings were busted up.
It might be due for a nearly 100-year anniversary of its destruction on film. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
because you can just take a major city from anywhere in the world and just go to destroy it. People just want to see New York.
Vancouver always doubles for other cities, including San Francisco and the newer Godzilla.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. How about they just destroy Vancouver by itself?
Well, because Canadians are so apologetic. They don't want to go up there and,
Why would Godzilla destroy Vancouver? This is the shot in which they added more snow. I'm proud of them. It looks slightly better than it did
decent.
before.
even in Americans' minds, you feel a little bit like, okay, everybody calls us pigs. They think we're pigs. So you feel, like, okay, you're destroying New York. All right, you can take that in the film.
All right, yeah.
And then the rest of the world, of course, like those American pigs. Even if they aren't outright those American pigs, they kind of, you generally go with what people think. So we're getting what is coming to us by destroying New York. But,
sure.
Why? When you go and destroy Vancouver, sorry. They're apologetic. You go and destroy.
They're like trying to get out of the way of Godzilla's feet. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to trip you up a little bit.
They not only evacuate the city to observe it, they're like cheering him on. Yeah, woo, go.
Hey, that's my house. I don't think they'd be cheering him on. Something tells me they would not be doing that. There's the goldfish in the sea. I'm glad they kept that shot in the re-edit. By the way.
Oh man. He is a bumbling...
Barney Rubble in the plane, Kobayashi.
I just remember watching this with you and thinking when I very first heard his voice,
insulting
his actual voice. Oh, it's very insulting. It makes him not a character. This is a live action film, and as you keep saying, it makes him feel like a cartoon. So the first time I heard that voice, the voice actor and his style choice of how to portray this character, I was like, oh, this is just like a joke at the beginning, and his voice will change. It didn't.
No, and it's really bad.
No, it's just not. It's not respectful in any way.
So the movie that this was apparently shown with, they used to do double bills, by the way.
Yeah, even up to Night of the Living Dead in the 60s-ish, maybe late 50s, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, the movie that it was with was a movie called Teenagers from Outer Space.
And I've heard of that one. I haven't watched a lot of them because some of them are so bad, but I'm somewhat of a connoisseur.
It's a movie directed and written by
B-movies.
Tom Grafe, starring David Lowe and Don Bender.
Sometimes the best way to take in these old B movies is through the medium of Mystery Science Theater 3000, because then you get the benefit
my gosh,
of
it
watching
was an
them with the
episode of
terrible
that
commentary.
show. I'm not kidding.
I'm sure that's where I've heard of it from.
So it's apparently about extraterrestrial spaceship that lands on Earth in order to use it as a farm for its food supply. Lobster-like creatures called the Gargons.
Oh, the plot line just already sounds so bad.
The crew of the ship includes teenagers, two of whom oppose each other in their various activities while on Earth. So it's less Skinamax than it sounds.
Yeah. Ugh, that's an interesting term.
Later featured on episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000, Elvira's movie, and Offbeat Cinema.
So what I have to say really quick, Joe, when you're watching this film, at this point in the film, Godzilla and Anguirus, they had their fight.
You're asleep because of all the monotonous narration.
But in the Japanese version or this one, so the Japanese version was our first viewing of this film, just period. I had never seen it. The Godzilla and Anguirus have fought. That's what the title is all about. Godzilla raids again, and it shows Anguirus on the poster on the bill, and you're like, oh wow, that's what it's going to build up to. So it happens so early. At this point in the film, where our characters are kind of celebrating their upcoming marriage, I think is what's happening. That's what it seems like, because he kind of like the bumbling idiot character. He leaves another party to go celebrate with them because he's like, can I go celebrate, their engagement or whatever's going on? This is all just like human drama taking place, and I just thought, I joked to you, hey Joe, so the fight already took place. Is this going to be what the rest of the film is? It just kind of fades. It's another 40 minutes of this human drama that kind of just fades out and ends. And you don't even see Godzilla.
That would be more interesting than the ending of this movie.
Well, but it's like, wait a second. Wasn't this a Godzilla film? Because they just, and this is literally how it feels like it's done. They just shoehorn Godzilla in at the end again because the bumbling idiot character who sacrifices himself, he just happens upon Godzilla.
Yeah,
they're not even looking for him. He's not a threat anymore. Godzilla's gone. He's done his threateningness, and then he's like, oh, there he is, like all angry and vengeful. And it's like, okay, why are you angry and vengeful? It's kind of just what Godzilla does. He just comes in and destroys stuff. At least this time, his lust for violence was satiated before he like destroyed tons of Japan. But he his bloodlust was satiated. He went back into the sea. You should be satisfied with that. But they just like, oh, Godzilla's back. Okay.
Well, later on, they got to get used to kind of Godzilla attacking all the time.
Yeah, in this film, it required a viewing of Godzilla's last attack to remind people, oh yeah, you remember Godzilla? Oh yeah, Godzilla, that guy that destroyed everything, like just a few months ago.
Yeah. 6 months ago, according to the release date of this movie that you're watching right now.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you my idea for a monster movie?
No.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right. It was called Mogwai the Seven-Headed Beast.
A Mogwai? You know what a Mogwai is?
Not Mogwai,
but
Mogwai.
But it just sounds like you know,
I understand that it sounds like something else I didn't at the time.
I think at least subconsciously you got that from Gremlins. Go on.
Mogwai, I hadn't watched Gremlins until like a year,
that is
2 years
so
ago.
weird. You had to have heard that word. Go on.
This is an old idea of mine, and it was kind of badly written, so I didn't pursue. But it was about this. It was going to be about this American weapons manufacturer.
Sounds interesting.
Who kept making weapons for the Japanese to use against all these monsters that keep coming every year. And he's basically selling them crap. So he goes to Japan to sell his stuff. He has a meeting in Japan. And then, of course, a monster attacks and he's stuck there. And when he sees the death and destruction, he has a change of heart. And so then they have to actually try to destroy the monster.
And he becomes Iron Man? Is that...
He doesn't become Iron Man. He never becomes Iron Man. It's not like that. He's just, he's a bad guy and he turns, he has a change of heart and he decides to turn good.
So wait, the focus of the movie is on the character or the monster?
On the character.
And the monster's named Mogwai?
Mogwai.
Mogwai.
Let's not call him Mogwai.
It's
Mogwai. It's a name that means like monster or something like that in some other language. I was looking for names and I found that.
Huh.
Anyway. Or it might have been almost like that and then I changed the word a little bit.
I bet that's how you found Mogwai.
I can't remember. Stop saying Mogwai. It's pissing me off. Anyway, that was my idea for the movie because I think it would be interesting to see these later Godzilla movies. Like, they have had cities destroyed about once every other year for 30, 40, 50 years. Like...
long time.
A long time.
They've had to continue
and
the
I would
rebuild.
like to see how Japan would be functioning at that point.
Yeah, because...
And so that was my screenplay idea.
Where do you continue? So let's take this movie based in science fiction, movie line based in science fiction and bring it to reality. Where do you continually get the resources to build structures over and over again? Do you have the Earth runs out of...
Well, they recycle, obviously. They have to.
Yeah.
That's what they got.
They have rubble. How many times can you recycle rubble before it turns to dust?
What's really confusing, why are they always going to Japan? How come they're not like, hey, did you hear about Godzilla last week attacked South Korea? Like, they never...
and actually...
Did they do that ever?
No, but in this film, there's a certain point in this... I think we missed it. It was right before the Anguirus Godzilla attack. Remember, we thought it was so funny because it showed like major cities around the world evacuating.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Godzilla was spotted off the shore of Tokyo, and all of a sudden
they made it a national thing.
It's a possible attack that he could,
international thing.
Yeah, it's a possibility that he could show up in America? It's like
Yeah.
it was just spotted off Japan's coast.
So
Immediately
you were
evacuate
watching this
all
Japanese
coastal
movie, but
cities
guess
in
what?
North
It's
America.
personal. That's why they're doing it.
Yeah. Well, but it wasn't even just like America. It was like everywhere around the world was evacuating.
I'm surprised they didn't have a shot of just geishas playing the guitar in between. Just, oh yeah, Japan exists.
Yeah.
Geishas.
So again, with our
We complain that there are no good human characters. They really tried in this movie. Because in the first Godzilla movie, it was almost like the human story was there, and then this horrible thing like gets in the way.
Yeah.
And that's how, honestly, like in a perfect world, that's how these movies should be. And there should have probably only been one movie. Let's in a perfect world, in an honest world in which people go, oh, art, you don't keep continuing this. You just keep what's perfect. Like you keep what's there. In a perfect world, that would be the case. But now in this movie, we're like, give us two monsters fighting each other because I cannot stand this. This is so boring and terrible, especially with the English voice acting. It just makes it 50 times worse.
It does. So problems with characters in Godzilla Raids again. You can continue. You can say over and over and over again. They have no character development. It's hard to name the traits or whatever. Like, so it was put to the test. They just asked people who are like lovers or haters of the first Star Wars movie, and they questioned people. They're like, okay, so this character, say Qui-Gon Jinn, name something. Like,
I see the Red Letter Media review of
they just go like,
Phantom Menace.
Tell me something about him. And people can't, because it's like, he's I guess he's Obi-Wan's master.
Yeah, and he's like stoic is what one of the people say.
Stoic. And then you go like Padme, so this is just from the first film, and it's like yeah, and then you go, okay, Obi-Wan, because there's nothing really that's interesting about him. They don't have like a character trait. They don't like a specific character.
They're
personality
two-dimensional,
trait.
so they are
much.
just what they do. They don't have anything that's driving them. That's what the problem is. Or one of the problems.
It's not even that you have to be like consciously or subconsciously relating
this
to these
movie
characters.
has the same problems as that.
At the end, we can't even remember their names because it's like, those people.
I can't remember their names because we're watching a subtitled movie.
Well, also, though, they just don't, even though they're in so much of the movie, they're so forgettable, and it makes the film forgettable when your characters take up, I don't know, I'd say roughly 3/5 of this whole film, because there really isn't a ton of Godzilla.
They tried to do what they did with the first movie. They just should have spent more time writing. Honestly, they shouldn't have pumped it out so quickly. You could say that about most Rush sequels.
Ooh, yeah, and we're saying that about possibly the most Rush sequel in the history of like actual cinema film that showed up in like theaters.
Theatrically released film. Okay. By major motion picture studio.
Yep.
Toho. I can't remember. There's like two motion picture studios in Japan. Toho is one of them. I was trying to remember what the other one was, and I just can't. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll get it. So yeah, our bumbling character, his like feeling purpose of vengeance against Godzilla here just seems unfounded. I guess he's like, he wants to be a hero. He wants to prove himself to this girl. Then at the same time, it's like, you went against my country. You were trying to destroy it or whatever. So like a sense of national purpose.
I don't know.
Oh. And again, we'll see here in just a second. They named this Gigantis the fire monster. What they used to scare away the fire monster at the end of this, one of their battle tactics against him is to light barrels on fire to scare him away from said barrels, to like closer to the mountains so they can trap him in an avalanche. And the fire scares the fire monster. Everything in this thing is convoluted.
I think someone said, and although I'm not entirely sure, and I haven't seen it yet, so they might be right. Someone said that he never uses his atomic breath in this version of the movie.
Yeah.
Like they cut it out for no reason, because that's a cool thing, and I don't know why they would cut out something cool.
Well, yeah, like cutting out his cry and replacing it with the same cry. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I think Anguirus's cry is iconic. It's not the coolest, but it is definitely iconic. They really, really were stretching that they needed to just make this new monster. So what's his name? Is it Paul Schreibman? He's the one.
Yeah, something like that.
Who came up with the name Gigantis. Okay, take the name Godzilla and take the name Gigantis. Not knowing who Godzilla is, like just the names alone, trying to detach yourself from knowing what these things are, Gigantis or Godzilla. Mm-hmm. What's the better name? Good. Gigantis can't even hold a candle to Godzilla. God.
Yeah, it makes it like
Zilla.
It makes it big. It's a bigger name.
It's just
even though one's called like gigantic.
Name. Yeah.
The other one is God.
And then you add Zilla. So
Yeah.
you're like making God a monster, like a dinosaur, Zilla. And it's got a Z in it.
Now, I'm
All
not
cool
100%
words have Z
sure
in it.
like what company did what. I don't think that the redub for this movie had anything to do with the original Americanized thing with Raymond Burr.
Oh, okay.
Now, someone can correct me on that via Twitter or via the message boards or whatever you want, GodzillaPodcast.com.
Plug.
If it say had nothing to do with the original Godzilla thing, maybe they're just trying to stay away from the other company, I guess. But if it's the same thing, like the first one was a success, so why?
Yeah, it shipped worldwide. You were saying, it even went back to Japan, our American version. And
with Raymond Burr, we're talking about the 54 film.
Yes. We couldn't, so it felt like we tried to knock it just a teeny bit, in a jesting way, the Godzilla King of Monsters, but it's a good movie. It's still good. It's serviceable.
It's a good B movie is what it is.
Yes.
Like you got a film, as I said, film with the 1954 Godzilla, 1956 Godzilla King of the Monster. You have, because it was taken off of a film and re-edited, it became a really good B movie.
Yeah, like a really good one. Yeah.
It's not an A movie, but it is a B movie. But it's the top. It's like 1 percentile away from that A minus, like that grade that it was.
Yeah, exactly. That's for me as well, an accurate representation of how it feels. So then you took Godzilla.
Although watching Godzilla first and then watching Godzilla King of the Monsters is a mistake.
Yeah.
As a viewer.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it holds up a lot better by itself.
It does when you watch the American version. When you watch Godzilla King of Monsters first and then you watch Gojira. Mm-hmm. It's a better viewing experience to view them in that order. That's what makes it feel like they did a bad job.
They did a bad movie producers. Bad
movie producers.
The other company I was thinking of, the other movie company that was pretty big around the time, and it still might be big now, is Shochiku. So it's Toho's it's its competitor in Japan, or at least it was at the time.
Okay.
And they were known for the films of Yasujiro Ozu, who I talked about in the first episode. Remember, he had a different film language than D.W. Griffith did.
Okay.
And most of our films now are kind of based on that D.W. Griffith model. And Ozu, if you see Japanese film, they still got that Ozu influence. Like their framing is oftentimes just a little bit different. and that's really where it comes from. And of course, that's more based on like Japanese print art and stuff like that. That flat image that I'm thinking of.
Okay.
And then Kenji Mizoguchi, who directed a wonderful movie called Ugetsu Monogatari.
Wow.
That's an amazing movie. It's like a weird ghost samurai movie. It's amazing. So to go check that out. Also, the films of Mikio Naruse, who I don't know who that is, and Yoji Yamada, whose name I am familiar with, but I'm not quite sure what he directed. So, anyway, they seem like a very serious film company, and Toho seems like the a little bit more of the big studio kind of a thing, just based upon who was working for each company.
Yeah.
But Akira Kurosawa had Toho, or Toho had Akira Kurosawa.
And I noticed in High and Low that it says a Toho-Kurosawa film here. And I was like, oh, that's pretty big.
He was a very powerful director at the time. Oh, yeah. He lost his power, but he was very powerful at the time. It's going to be hard to watch these movies without talking about Kurosawa, because that's like all my Japanese film knowledge comes from Kurosawa movies.
They're the ones that you showed me were good movies.
Yeah, which ones did you watch again? It was High and Low.
And Throne of Blood.
You recommend them to our listeners?
Definitely High and Low. I enjoyed Throne of Blood. I think maybe one reason I didn't enjoy that as much is I have seen a lot of Macbeth, and I love Macbeth, but it follows the same exact... I mean, it is Macbeth. The one cool difference is that instead of the three witches, it's like an evil spirit that foretells his future, and then he returns to talk to about, like, tell me more, like, I need to know more. And it's cool. The filmmaking technique in that, the way that the spirit's shown is just cool. And how he shot with arrows.
The part where he shot in the neck.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did that. I have no idea how they did that effect. It's incredible.
Well, when you watch it, it's obviously too. It's a really quick. They did a good job with it, and that's probably why you're thinking, how do they do that? But you can tell that it went from not being there to being there. So he's just standing there, and then they cut just really quickly. He's standing in the same position, and they have it. Like,
yeah, but usually when an actor's standing in the same position, there's some kind of weird, awkward cut.
Yeah,
but that one is smooth, noticeable. And it's like...
Yeah, it's just...
And because maybe it's because the arrow is there, it distracts you from the cut, almost.
No, yeah, exactly. And then also
Sorry, go watch Throne of Blood.
Yes, exactly. The barely...
Oh, there's Godzilla's fire breath. See, that article was... a liar. Okay.
Well, yeah, that, and I swear...
But he still doesn't use it that much.
I swear he roasts Anguirus with it as well at the end.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
You
lost your train of thought?
Well, there's just so many things to talk about. I'm excited to see, again, just like transitioning from Gojira to this film, our big question was, oh my gosh, is this another Godzilla? Is this like a different timeline? Was Godzilla never actually killed? Is it just not going to be mentioned at all? There were so many possibilities. Yeah. So this is Godzilla number 2. It's another Godzilla from a different species. I'm interested in when King Kong versus Godzilla, our next viewing experience. Is he just going to come out of this ice? Because he's, timeline-wise, he's, at least if they refer back to this film, which... perhaps it would be smart of them not to. He broke out of the ice, maybe, or maybe it's another Godzilla, or maybe they just don't mention it at all. Maybe he just comes up out of the ocean again.
I don't know. I am very interested to see. Now, our listeners missed out when we had to re-record Godzilla King of the Monsters. They did miss out on my original very long diatribe on black and white film. And so I would like to bring this up for the 16th millionth time for Drew here.
Just do it.
I think for the first-ish time for you guys out there, I think we've talked about the merits of black and white. However, didn't talk about film cinematographers, just for a little bit here. Even with this movie, which isn't as nearly artsy or well filmed as the movie that it is a sequel of. Old cinematographers should be well respected.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not just that they created beautiful images, it's that all these images that they're creating, in order to get that image to show up well on film, this is before they had monitors. I think monitors came around in the 80s, so they could see what was on the film, sort of in a really bad image. And although they had eyepieces, it's still like the eyepiece can fool you. They have to know mathematically where the focus is going to be based upon like how the lens is set up and adjusted. They have to measure exactly where where the actor is standing and where he moves, and the focus puller has to mark that and stuff like that. And they can't see any of it. It all has to be in their head.
Yeah.
The mathematics of getting a film in black and white with good exposure, so it's not overexposed or underexposed, and in focus.
And that's where
that shit, it blows my mind. It's amazing, and we don't really learn that in film production now. I mean, we get the basics of it, but it's like, well, just look at the monitor and zoom in and see if their eyes in focus. Like that's as far as we go, at least with digital cinema. Of course, there are still cinematographers out there that are still amazing, but they're dinosaurs. They're going away.
That's where the term.
It's sad.
That's where the term dailies comes in, doesn't it? That they go back and view the dailies.
They still view the dailies.
Well, yes, but I mean, the dailies were the dailies back then.
They had to develop them at the lab, and they'd get what they got the day before.
Yes, and that's literally what was their first viewing of what was actually.
It's like, oh yeah,
taken.
let's make sure that it looks right.
Yeah. So, just we need to go on.
I went on a huge diatribe about that.
No, but yeah, and I want to hear. I don't know. It's very interesting to me. I hope to our viewing audience as well. So the film just ended. Mm-hmm. But what do you want to say about the difference to the ending of this film? Because it's like a happy ending.
Hopeful, nice little. Oh yeah, feel good.
Our lovers reunite, and the world is at peace again. They're showing up on the roof again. But in the original, he's just lamenting. He's like, "Okay, that was for you, my friend," and that was it. He doesn't get with the girl, and it wasn't this hokey romantic ending.
Don't care much for this movie. I gotta admit.
We're done with it. I don't this is a Godzilla movie. Godzilla Raids again, the Japanese version. I would probably view one or two more times in my entire life. I don't ever want to see the American version.
Gigantis.
I don't ever want to see Gigantis again. It's just not. It's like watching. You can buy B movies like 50 for like $10 on DVD, Mm-hmm. It's like going through those and watching ones that just are not viewable as a video, and then you're like, yep, I'll just throw away this whole disc. That's how I feel about this.
So let me ask you. Now, I mean, I am going to miss black and white Godzilla. It's not as well filmed in this movie, admittedly. However, had they had more chances for more black and white Godzilla sequels, I would be watching them happily as black and white monster movies, which I think look much better than monster movies up until now. Like, there's something about black and white that kind of your suspension of disbelief. It's a little easier to deal with black and white because you're like, oh yeah, this is a.
Well, yes, and that
the crappy CGI in King Kong. Like you wouldn't be worried about that because you're like, oh, I'm in a movie. It's black and white. It's not real. Like,
yeah, and then
I don't know. It's something that's
the destruction looks cool. The fires in black and white, yeah.
Fire in black and white looks amazing, including in this movie. The fire looks good.
Black and white looks awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be sad.
Joe, you literally took my like satisfaction and like indignation of just, I am happy to never view this film
They should
again.
make the next Godzilla movie in black and white.
Well, you turned that feeling to dang it. Yeah, there isn't any more.
I think Godzilla looks better in black and white up until like the 80s. When Godzilla comes back, he does look pretty darn good.
Oh yeah, when he
comes back later,
later.
Now we're gonna go through kind of a bad looking Godzilla. I think my personal feelings. I'm sure some of you out there, your favorite Godzilla suit is the King Kong versus Godzilla suit. I don't know, but it's not. It's definitely not mine. I think Godzilla looks really dorky up until like he comes back in 1984.
And I swear on some of those suits, you can't ever see a zipper down the front. You can almost see like a line that's just not well covered up because it does what it needs to, and it's Godzilla. It's Godzilla.
Now, Drew, you ordered a suspicious copy of King Kong versus Godzilla in Japanese for our next viewing.
And we'll plug I'll plug the site. Why not? It's called Sumo Gorilla. You can look into it.
It definitely looks like someone was at home making these DVDs. Now, hopefully it is a full Japanese version of King Kong versus Godzilla.
The title when you're purchasing it says the uncut, original
with
Japanese version.
Hopefully. So we'll see if it's any good. If it is any good, we will definitely plug that site, and that's where we're going to get Godzilla 1984 from, or Return of Godzilla.
And probably
the only Godzilla movie that's only available in Japan, and the American re-release with Raymond Burr, only available on VHS right now, and I think there's a DVD version on that site. So if your weird suspicious site called Sumo Gorilla,
hey, you found it,
is to be, and I said yours, I did find it, is to be believed, and I really hope it is.
I know, because it seems like
then
gold.
That is definitely where we're getting our Godzilla movies in the future.
You should have seen Joe's eyes when he found this site and then started realizing what was on it. It's like, no, this has like everything. So yes, our very first purchase.
I go to Amazon, right?
No, me too. Yeah, and when you can't find it there,
$38 VHS for Godzilla 1984.
Oh my gosh! Hey, Halloween,
a VHS. Go ahead.
Halloween, the original John Carpenter movie.
Yes,
there was a book made about that movie that's been out of print for a long time. It kind of expands on Michael Myers, blah blah blah, his origins, and just on the movie itself. So it's been out of print. It's a popular movie. I really want that book though, and it's on Amazon and other websites, eBay, whatever. About the lowest price I've seen is just still well over $100 for a paperback book. But yeah, see, just paperback books.
I'm not sure if that's
outdated VHS.
I'd just contact the seller and be like, "Hey, let's hang out."
Yeah, exactly. let me spend an afternoon at your place.
Yeah, and the reason why we're watching both versions is of King Kong versus Godzilla, starting with the Japanese, assuming that this is a legit DVD. I'm honestly scared.
I'm on pins and needles as well.
The reason why we're watching the Japanese one is because I know that the ending of the Japanese version, Godzilla wins. This is what I read. It's been too long for me to remember. And in the American version, I think King Kong wins. So because they're like two separate endings,
cool.
We got to do two different commentaries. Now, if we get to a movie like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, in which it's just a re-edit, we'll just, watch one version of the film.
Well, we will watch both to like.
Well,
we can, because then we can say, we can just comment on what's there and what's not.
Okay, yeah.
But we don't need to make two separate podcasts because, yes, you're right. They just cut scenes, or I guess maybe add. I don't know.
However, if there's two versions of the film that are very different, and there's a few in the future, I think Godzilla versus Mothra has scenes with American military personnel added in.
Really?
So we gotta do commentary on that.
I'm good with that. I like that.
I love
movie.
Godzilla vs. Mothra. That one's one of my favorites. And then Godzilla vs. the Space, or Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, has like a subplot with an American astronaut in it or something like that.
Whoa, okay.
So we got to watch, if we can get a hold of that one, both versions, we got to watch that one also.
Hey, I bet it's on the site.
Oh, I bet it's on Sumo Gorilla.
If this turns out to be an okay site.
Yeah, all right. Well, I think that's going to end it. Please, guys, go to GodzillaPodcast.com. Join our forum. Say hello if you can. You can also contact me on Twitter at Joseph DeGolyer. That's DEGOLYER. Drew.
You can contact me at Gojira Jaeger, JAEGER, or my name at Drew Daybell.
And I have another podcast coming out soon. Now, I already host Ultima Final Fantasy, the ultimate Final Fantasy podcast. So you can check that out on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. There will be a new podcast in the next 5 weeks, I think. That it's going to be called Nude Clan. Nude as in naked, clan as in a group of people. Nude Clan. And it's gonna be a video game podcast. There's gonna be video game reviews and news. And it's 4 obnoxious young men talking about video games. So if you're interested in that, that'll be coming soon. There'll be more information there for you. So, and you can find more information on that in the next coming weeks, although when this episode is released, probably not, at nudeclan.net, which this podcast is part of the Nude Clan network. So that's going to be we decided to make our little boats first before we did our flagship. Which is a weird thing to do, I understand, but that's what's going on.
I hope Godzilla doesn't come along and destroy this fleet.
I wouldn't mind, actually.
I'd feel honored.
I don't understand. Maybe I'm totally misread your metaphor there, by the way. I thought you meant I hope, I really hope that this podcast doesn't get very good download rates.
No.
And that your flagship podcast sucks. And I'm like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. If we get a lot of downloads, I'm happy. That's what I was thinking. So I missed your thing. I thought it was a metaphor. I didn't realize it was.
You're like me.
Actually Godzilla destroying the fleet. Can I say something, Drew?
Do it.
Now, I know that wasn't sarcasm. That was just a comment that I misread. I am of a family who we are sarcastic all the time. I've noticed this with my siblings and parents. This how we are sarcastic all the time. As soon as someone says something sarcastic to us, can't read it. I cannot read sarcasm whatsoever.
I am told that all the time, and that's absolutely what I have to tell people. Yep, I take everything literally, and yet I can use sarcasm. I thought that I had this dysfunction in my brain, and I was the only one.
No, dude. I started noticing it with my family when I would say something sarcastic, and then after a year, I noticed people would say something sarcastic to me, and I'd be like, I take it literally and be like, dude, I was just kidding.
I get told that all the time.
Well, okay. That's where it goes all the time. Yeah, it's horrible. It's a horrible curse.
Since I hear it so often, people say, it was a joke to me. When I take those things literally, I just go, yeah, that's just the way I am. I just brush it off now because it happens so often. It's the way I am.
All right. So this is the sarcastic can't read sarcasm anonymous signing off with, of course, our theme for this movie. Da, da, da,